halcyon days, right? Like there's all the money in the world and everybody is throwing shit against the wall. Remember those days? And I
Mm.
and I thought especially about the 70s for some reason because I was around.
Hello, Mike.
But
Happy Friday.
Jack, happy Friday. Happy end-ish of May. Is it end? No, it's still got a little more, I guess. I can't remember how many days are in May, but we're
Yeah,
finally
it
reaching
feels, yeah,
reaching summerness.
yeah. Right now it feels like March.
Yeah, it was nice. I am hoping again it was gonna completely turn, but who knows what Midwest weather. I spoke to my friend Daniel who lived here for a little while when he was getting his doctorate at University of Chicago, or no, his master's. And he is not a winter person,
Mm.
but thinking way back then and the kind of winters that used to seemingly never end.
Mm.
I think it was the idea of like in June, there would still be big, huge hunks of ice that had not yet melted from all the plowing that would happen. You remember these things? I don't know, maybe it's balmier up in Woodstock, a little more tropical up there.
A little bit more, but
Okay.
usually we are in a polar vortex too. So
Mm,
yeah.
there you go. Either way, I just remember that you never see real signs of it being summer until mid-July at least. But it's warmer now, I told him. So I don't know.
Mm.
It's warmer.
Well, yeah,
It's fine.
yeah. Well, the real sign is the humidity, right? That kind of works in, in July. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, that's also fun too, to kind of
Mm.
transition my wardrobe. I wore some shorts the other day. It's good. So surviving AI, how's it going so far? Are you surviving?
Yeah, yeah, very good. Yeah, so we are
Oh.
surviving the AI. Yeah, kind of. Everybody is counting the tokens, looking at, those tokens getting more expensive, and
Mm.
then the frontier models kind of getting more and more, kind of exciting or, really amazing. But the token counts going up, and suddenly, chat might be really expensive with those top of the line models.
Yeah, I think um the one of the themes I was looking up today was the sort of halcyon days, right? Like there's all the money in the world and everybody is throwing shit against the wall. Remember those days? And I
Mm,
and I thought especially about the 70s for some reason because I was around.
mm,
But I thought of 70s music, right? Like here's this weird time where all of the world pretty much exploded with all of this music. And it was partly because of there was a lot of young people like
mhm,
us, right?
mhm.
But also is really culturally relevant. That was the idea is that the youth and the cultural relevant, and we were going to invent this new thing, and suddenly you get a million different kinds of music. You get reggae, and you get Afrobeat, and you get rock and roll, and you get anyway. It was huge, and weirdly, we're still listening to it, right? It's 20, 50 years later, and there are many stations and you'll still hear a song. It's like, yeah, I remember hearing this when it came out, right? And so
Mm.
anyway, what was, and I said, what was the deal? Like what made this time so special? And it's like, yeah, you have all the money in the world, you don't have much criteria, right? You don't really know anything, and so you take a lot of chances. So I kind of am equating that to this. We're in this era of AI, right? We really have no idea because wasn't it
Mm.
just a minute ago that OpenAI AI was supposed to do everything, right? Oh no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Now it's Anthropic. See what I mean? Like
Mhm,
even
mhm.
then, in a short span, like the leader, the Chat GPT, the brand name is already kind of like, oh, okay, maybe I don't know if you have any thoughts on the idea that we have no idea what we're doing. I guess that's the point. Like nobody knows. Yes, sooner or later they'll charge for it, I think was your point. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. once they figure out who's going to pay, I guess.
Well, I mean, so there is obviously two schools, right? So there is going to
Mm,
be one school that says, "Hey, we have no idea. We are looking at a runaway AI that is pretty soon gonna be kind of like a super AI, and even and then it's just gonna be maybe us that will abuse that super AI, or
You
the
mean you
AI
and me, I
is
hope, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay.
and then maybe AI itself is gonna just kind of get really dangerous. So that's one
Well,
school, right? So we don't know what we are doing, and the scenarios are very dangerous. And then, maybe the other school is that it's going to be amazing, right? Like, hey, AI is going to solve all the biological problems that we have, all the medicine issues, medical issues, all right? And it's going to solve physics. We're going to fly to Mars for a vacation and come back, and that kind of thing. So it's going to be amazing, and we're going to send all the data centers to the orbit, create like a, Dyson swarm. And yeah, so that's the optimist, right? I have to say that I'm kind of seeing maybe more and more signs that we are looking at a Blade Runner scenario where the
we're in the Blade Runner scenario right now. We're surrounded by advertisements, I guess. That would probably that
yeah,
justifies some
yeah.
cost right there, but no,
Yeah, where either the first episode or the second episode,
the
it's kind of
replicants.
a sad world, kind of generally speaking. Maybe the replicants are not going to be as good looking as the certain examples from the movie, right? But generally it's a
They'll
sad,
probably have
gray
those
world.
Daft Punk looking helmets on, right? Isn't that the idea? They're kind of like, personalityless,
Yeah, and
I don't
they will
know.
probably be less poetic than Rutger Hauer, that apparently just invented
Rutger
his.
Hauer, quite good looking too. So you got to put
Yeah.
the, they were all really good looking. Why can't we make more
Yeah,
good looking AI things? I
yeah,
guess they
and
are.
yeah,
The girlfriends are all good looking, I suppose, right? The
yeah,
fake, anyway. Yeah.
yeah, and they're poetic, right? I mean, the final monologue,
Sure.
apparently Rutger Hauer just came up with it. Was not in the script,
Oh,
just Time to Die,
really?
it was apparently just, he improvised it. So, but anyway, that, I don't think the AI is going to be as poetic as the Nexus 6 in its final moments.
Well, I mean, I think the one great thing that we both share is that narratively, right? We how about this? The just on your narrative trope, I did have this conversation about a problem I'm having, which I'm happy to share, but I do want to hear from you as well because you
Mm.
wrote a really interesting article. And they're both kind of related. But the um, after discussing sort of some complexities about especially the idea of the hey, we're in the boom times, right? You don't realize what life is really like because you're in the boom times. Everything is possible and things come and go super quickly and there's all the money in the world, right? That's the other thing, right? All the resources in the world are available right now. And all the things that don't work will be easily forgotten in the things that. So that's the thing.
Mm.
You're in a great time because we have not belt tightened yet, right? We have not like matured. We haven't like cut back on. You see what I mean? It was like the early days when oil just came out of the ground and Jed Clampett went off to
Mm.
spend all his money. And I lived in that. I lived in Dallas. Everybody was rich. You see what I mean? What all that worthless land, oil just seemed to come out of it at will, and you didn't have to be a farmer and a cattle farmer anymore. So
Mm.
life was good. And then you had to spend all your money on crap. Anyway, long story short, it kind of dries up, is the point. Things don't last forever. But the metaphor, to your point, to Rutger Hauer's point, is Prometheus. You get the gift.
Mm.
You get the gift of fire, but you can't use the gift of fire. In fact, you are chained to a rock, and your liver every day is eaten by crows and grows back again to feed the crows. So I kept
Mm.
thinking, well, you don't get too much farther from this metaphor, right? As
Mm.
humans, right? We're always afraid of what is really going to be entailed whenever great promise or power is bestowed upon us, which we both agree, right? We have been bestowed a great power by nobody in particular, like by accident. And now we're trying to figure out what to do with it, right? Because
Mm.
From your background, I think there's a clean break between machine learning and generative AI, right? It's a cleanish break to be different, very different.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, the principle of inductive learning, which is that basically, you have a training set, and then you are saying, hey, if the training set is the representative of your problem, then the machine learning is going to give you very representative predictions in that domain, right? So we are very far from that right now, where,
That's the thing. Just remember, repeat that. We have terrible data about almost everything. Just remember, and I work for Salesforce, and I was just joking. I'm like, yeah, if people didn't have such awful data models, Salesforce would be making a fortune, right?
Hmm.
But they don't. Anyway, let's keep going.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so the representative, was data was key, right? Like,
Totally.
we
Yeah.
inductive learning was telling you that, hey, stay within the domain, and you're gonna be okay. And now in our generative AI, basically, hey, we let's dump, Wikipedia and Reddit and the whole internet into this. So you have all domains in the training set,
Well, all
supposedly,
domains
supposedly.
captured within that data set, which is
Yeah,
a
exactly.
very tiny subset of reality.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And to quote Michael Scott from The Office, right? Hey, we are using internet data, and we know it's the best data because anybody can
It's
say whatever they want on the internet, and we got that, right? So,
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And that is truly real when I think it comes to especially some American trends like the rural versus the urban trends. You see what I mean? Like if you imagine a group of people, which by the way is I think all of them, who hopefully, and this is my opinion, could give two craps about what a computer does. You see what I mean? To most people, computer stuff is not anything, right? They live their lives day to day without ever having to worry about this mechanic around data gap, all this stuff that we have actually worked on our whole career. So we're very focused on it, right? We build these things. We are architects, but most people just live in a building. They don't build it.
mm,
And often they don't even update it. You know what I mean? They don't have many thoughts to, oh, I really should repaint these walls and such like that. Like that takes you as into a different realm of a different person. So most people are not, they're not part of this data set is what I mean. And I think that could be to our detriment because maybe these are people who could really benefit
mm,
far more than we could, right? Like your elite coders, I think that you've probably been in this situation before where it's like your not so elite coders are hampered by AI, right? Because it doesn't allow them to build the
mm.
muscle memory of mistakes that lend you to make better decisions, right? Because that's how we learn usually,
Yeah,
I think. At
yeah.
least that's certainly how I learned. And I know it's how you learned, right? Like you don't get good at something by being good at it. you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So they're suffering, whereas elite people now are probably a little more prosperous with the tool just because they've already had the curve. They've already had that curve, and now they can start to see like, okay, and this is the sort of the co-pilot. Sorry, Microsoft. By the way, did I ever tell you how much I dislike Microsoft, especially this two-factor authentication thing? It's like it's almost brutal how bad they designed this thing. Speaking of anyone who hates computers, that's what they think of all the time, right? Is how it is really not fun. Anyway, but I'll go past that one.
Well, yeah, and so you are touching on several kind of big issues, like, one of them is that, let's say in education, right, you will have a wonderful AI, and you will be able to basically put together, the best possible professor that you possibly could have, like a synthesis of Albert Einstein and 10 other philosophers in one AI. And and the question will be, is anybody going to be able to or willing to use it, right? I mean, perhaps perhaps there is going to be a small percentage of kids that will kind of go that route and become really great at something, but I think the majority may not. And then, then there is this notion, okay, so is education going to improve with super intelligence being at the fingertips? And those are the problems. And but to kind of be a little bit more fair, to the AIs, right? I mean, there is a huge effort now to improve the AI through making it bigger and kind of like more neurons and stuff like that. But there is also a very significant effort to actually create the synthetic data that grabs the internet, basically dumpster, and clean it up, right? So make sure that it's more consistent and kind of remove the
See, that's
weeds,
the most
basically.
sci-fi thing I've ever heard come out of your mouth. We're going to clean up our synthetic data. Jack, what's happened to you? Have you drunk the Kool-Aid? Wait a second.
Well, there is an effort, right? I mean, there is a way to do this,
Oh,
right?
no. Like I said, we're throwing money at everything. So this is the house. It's the best times. We're in the best of times, right? No idea is dumb enough to probably not get funded, which is what I also have heard from my students. They're like, hey, we were part of the team. Go make people use AI more. And I thought, what a ridiculous team, if you know what I mean. And the person actually reiterated to me what I just said, is that people who really know what they're doing find AI to be helpful, right? Like it's a time saver, etc. People who don't know what they're doing are at a huge loss. And this was for, I would call, one of the biggest companies on earth, I guess. Right. So it's interesting because I didn't think that they were so foresightful. But sorry, going back to let's clean up some synthetic data.
Yeah. So essentially the idea is, hey, we are running out of the training data anyway. So there is some concepts in machine learning that kind of apply today, which is, let's say, the epoch, right? Like how many times you kind of like resupply the data set that is your training, set,
Sure.
right? And so if you have so if you take the internet, right, you clean it up, right, using some criteria or maybe some current AIs that you kind of like set up so that they are cleaning up things, and and you can create another layer, another synthetic data set that is kind of slightly different, slightly cleaner, right? And now you use it in another iteration of your learning process, then the outcome is going to be better, right? That is going on right now. So the improvements, in ChatGPT 5.5, that we see today, and the Anthropic new stuff is kind of like the result of two things. Improved internal structure of the neural network that is running the show, but also improving the input, right? Making it bigger, making more epochs, and maybe clean it up to an extent. And so for example, if you see a lot of contradictions, right? Like somebody will say, hey, this planet is round, and then somebody else will say, the planet is flat, right? So you can statistically maybe have a voting mechanism that will say, hey, there's going to be like 100 people that says, that it's a round planet, and then only 10 people that it's a flat planet. So you will basically promote that fact that gets more votes, right? So hoping that this is a robust, bias that you are introducing.
I mean, that's fascinating. Although, can I throw my 70s music analogy on it, which is in the 70s, you had some fairly sophisticated tools in recording. You had 8-track, 16-track, 30, whatever. Like you had really you had synthesizers. You had a whole new range of things that you could make music with. What is music? I think goes to your point. Music, to me, at least now after a long journey, is dynamic range, right? That things have a natural dynamic range because that's the way we hear, right? We don't go into a place like the forest and say, I wish you could turn it up. You know what I mean? Like things have inherent sound qualities, and we're really sophisticated at being able to tell good and bad from hey, that's out of tune, or you see what I mean? Like we have very sophisticated skills. We don't have to learn them, we just have them, right? In the 80s, I'm going to tell you what happened was compression, right? They realized the only thing that's important is to be loud enough to be heard over a car radio. And so all music got dynamic range compressed. And I mean compression, not as in like size, just as in dynamic range, because louder is always better. So it's exactly what's going to happen to AI, right? Yeah, compression is always the step that leads away from all the experimentation. Because to me, I think the fun is always the randomness, and to treat this thing not as an oracle, right? It's more of like a brainstorming partner or whatever you want to call it, right? But I think you and many of my students are now struggling because what I'm asking the students to do, and I think what you're doing too, relates to the system one, system two thing. So if we can do a quick Kahneman, system one, system two is meant to be about economics because he's a professor of economics, and it's about behavior. And behavior can be complicated, but he tries to make it simpler by saying, hey, we train ourselves to be able to make quick decisions easily without too much thought, which is your analogous to your filtering, right? Like you go through the internet, most of it doesn't need to be taken care, but which do you throw out? I don't know. It's a hard problem, right? But we do it as a human all the time. We're like not paying attention, sitting in class, that lecture is boring. I don't listen to it. Oh, I'm reading this book, but I can't remember what it said. Do you see what I mean? Like we're not magnets for anything. We filter things out, but system two, that's system one, so that we can easily say, oh, what would be really good for you is I think I just heard great things about the new Pontiac Grand Prix. You really should go check out that car. See what I mean? Like, I have no idea what I just said, but it sounds reasonable enough. And you might take it seriously. Hey, my friend told me that the Pontiac Grand Prix is a great, something I should check. See what I mean? Like it doesn't, it's not reality. It's just, what's the word? Confabulation or whatever, when you make something up. And AI, I told my students now, I'm going to say it to you. I think I've said it. It is the best system one machine that we have ever created and will beat every human at system one.
Yeah.
I mean, right? We don't even have to get better. It's always going to be better at system one.
Yeah. That statistical, chat, that is the foundation of system one is hard to beat, right? But very clearly we are moving towards something else, right? So we are recognizing
hold that thought, because let's unpack. Are we? I kind of think it isn't architected that way, which is your paper, right? You are deliberately talking system two, right? And system two to me is what I'm trying to teach in my class. We'll get into it in a minute and we'll see the problems with system two. I mean, because system two, some may say, is also indecisiveness, lack of priority, unsurety about anything being true or not, which people hate that in general, right? Skepticism, hey, is this worth my, I mean, but it's slow. And to me, becoming more of what I practice and preach in my writing and here, right, is that we need to start being more human. Like humans are not fast and shouldn't be about productivity machines. You see, like we aren't built for it. But if we built a tool like a computer that can take away, like I think we talked last week about the logarithms, right? Like, hey, someone saved me a ton of work by inventing logarithms. Good. I don't have to even know how logarithms work anymore, is the point. I can now move on and do other things. And I think all that's really good. It doesn't mean like, hey, you don't know how logarithms, you couldn't make them yourselves. Or you don't even know how any of this stuff works, right? It doesn't mean you cannot be valuable and think up fun things, right? Or like, I don't know how to write a or what do they call it? A parser. But I know it exists, and it puzzles the hell out of me how it even works, but I don't care. You see what I mean? Like, what difference does it make how it works? It's how I can use it is, I think, what's important. So you
Yeah,
can take the
yeah,
other coin because you are really working toward that next level of it. If it could do system two to me, well, tell me, do you think it can?
yeah. I don't know. I
Okay,
don't
all
know.
right.
It
Well,
seems,
we don't have to be too weird
yeah,
about it.
it seems that it's a difficult question, right?
Yeah,
Let's say, I don't know the algorithms, let's say, but I still can be a valuable person, right? So let's say, I'm missing some foundation work, but now with AI, I can still be valuable. And so the question will be, okay, so what is that value, right? Like, if let's say somebody is at the level that they don't get basic science, or maybe basic, I don't know, basic
yeah,
literature, or basic poetry, or something, right? Like, okay, so now you've got that super intelligent tool is, kind of available at the fingertips. So how, can I create a value without those foundations? And if so, I mean, what is that supposed to be, right? And maybe it's going to be an easy answer, or maybe not. I mean, I don't see it right now. Like, I mean, like, going back to music, right? Like, so, let's say you're looking at Jimi Hendrix, everybody says greatest guitarist, in the world. And he is doing everything wrong. He is playing the guitar upside down. He had zero education. He didn't know what to do with the guitar. He just picked it up. And maybe, after a while, he became the greatest guitarist in history,
well, many
perhaps.
say
Yeah.
after 10,000 hours he became the. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But he did, right? I mean, so
yeah.
so now, so
No,
yeah, so
humans are
you're,
really
yeah,
good if we can stick to it, right? Like that's the point. If you can put
yeah,
the hours in, I guess.
yeah. So is he an outlier, right? Is he that, is his guitar the AI system that he picked up? He knew nothing about it, right? And now kind of created the greatest outcome that many people kind of still regard as the greatest outcome, or foundational for sure, right?
Well, and here's a fun fact. What he did, like you said, by sheer, let's say, um, chance, someone else heard it. And I know this to be true, is that someone else heard a recording of a particular guitar part and didn't realize that this part was actually double tracked. So they learned to play the part not double tracked.
Mm.
So you see what I mean is that's the fun of being human is that you kind of still use those archetypes, but you make new music. You see what I mean? And you start there, if that makes sense, right? Like you start with that as a template of it is possible to make this kind of sound with a guitar, right?
Mm.
And you don't play guitar, do you?
No.
Oh, neither do I. But I was just watching a thing because it's fascinating about pedals because there's like 18 different shaping pedals. So the point of electric guitar, at least, is that the range with augmentation is staggering, right? Whereas I don't think there is an untreated guitar sound that we've ever heard in our life. That's the whole point. Like, I don't think that we have ever heard, maybe in person, if someone just had a guitar, you see what I mean? Like, and everything was down to nothing. But once you amplify something, God, maybe this is profound. Once you amplify something, all bets are off, right? Like, once you bring machinery into it,
Mm.
because electric guitars don't make any sound.
Well, maybe a classical guitar, like a
No,
flamenco
no, but
guitar.
electric
So, yeah.
guitars don't make
Mm.
any noise at all,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah,
mean, I guess you could hear
I
it,
guess you
but
can hear it. You
it
can
just
practice
creates an
without
electric,
electricity.
yeah, it creates an electrical signal, and that electrical signal can be manipulated. So here we are back to AI again, right? It really is just a electrical signal getting
Mm.
amplified, right? And
Mm.
getting weighted and pathed and all that kind of good stuff. But that's, I think, what's so cool about it. It's not unnatural like a lot of computing can be, right? It could be
Mm.
brute force. You have you ever done a brute force problem?
Oh yeah, absolutely, all the time.
Okay, all the time. Okay, so you're sitting there like, okay, this is gonna need to run for at least a couple of days.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right, because optimization, compression is hard.
Mm.
Compression actually takes reducing your
Mm.
possibilities, right? I mean, you've heard about, you remember the what was it? The game Mist.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I was watching a thing on Mist because,
Yeah,
reminiscing. But
it
the thing
was,
is that they had no idea what they were doing. They wrote this thing in HyperCard, which isn't even a programming language. It was this weird stack thing. A guy apparently he wrote it based on an acid trip he had. He's like, this is the way you should do programming, and he built this program. And Apple was very open to such things, and it was really huge for quite some time. It was really fun. It's the precursor,
mm,
I guess, to the web because it worked kind of in
mm,
the same way. Anyway, so you pass
mm,
variables. Anyway, all that good stuff. Anyway, so they wrote in HyperCard, but they had to design it in a 3D program, and they're just saying how every single thing that they had to do took days to render one picture. And if they had
mm,
made any mistakes, of course, that was the thing, is then you just had to keep going and starting again. And no one had done it, right? This wasn't, something that everybody was doing at the time either. So I think it's interesting when you go back and now we're in that phase of AI. I still, right? I think we're going to be in it for a little while. Is that nobody knows. And it can, just because it's fast, it doesn't mean that it's facile. It doesn't mean, it just is quicker to learn. So you don't have to spend can you imagine if AI took like 10 minutes to come up with an answer? We wouldn't have this show.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
So, and that comes with energy and whatever and latency. You know what I mean? All the problems that people can point to. And it's true. Those are problems, but they're kind of like maybe temporary problems because you run local most of the time, right?
yeah, yeah. I do. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I just am using a tool called Type. What is it called? Type for me? Anyway, type co-typist. And what's great about co-type is it's running a little model that's learning about my writing. So whenever I write something now, it'll auto-complete my thoughts.
Mm,
And it's not good, but it's not bad. Like it's
mm,
it's it's actually useful. I don't know. It's a fun little thing for a little local model to do, which is
mm,
to kind of train itself on the kind of things you write about and use context. I always thought that Apple should have come up with this, but it didn't. But
mm,
but just as sort of that aid, right? Like I'm not saying I need it. I can just write. But many people are learning, right? Or many people are like, I don't know. I'm still curious, and we can go into education in a sec. But
mm.
I guess you are you really skeptical of system two? Because boy, I just, as I said, but by the way, everyone, Jack is on LinkedIn and writes wonderful articles there that have much more rigor than I give him credit for in our conversations. So
Well, I mean, the pieces appear to be appropriate, right? So,
yes, yeah,
so
no,
you
no,
are
meta
yeah,
cognition
so
layers are interesting. It's just,
yeah, yeah.
can it police itself is maybe a question I have because of another issue that I'm
So,
having with
so, so,
education.
so if you manage the memory, right? So if you recognize that the memory can be procedural, and you kind of explicitly represent your context that way, and if you recognize that the memory can be hierarchical, so you create those hierarchies with another AI, right? Kind of like focused on that. If you recognize that, some of the stuff you should forget, some of the stuff you should kind of bring in the foreground. So if you start recognizing all these memory techniques that AI guys have been discussing for decades and decades and decades, and there is actually just conferences dedicated to memory and knowledge representation in AI. So you recognize that that field exists, and then if you kind of recognize also that, hey, self-evaluation, right? It's useful to have a rubric that kind of evaluates what you do and kind of apply it, and then you improve based on the outcome from the rubric, right? So if you recognize these kind of things, then it kind of appears that it's kind of a logical thing to do. It's not something that you are discovering. It's just that, hey, the AI guys were talking about this for decades, so why not do it, right? Why not go beyond system one and try to do system two, right? So it appears that these are good logical steps. I'm just not sure that at
Hmm.
the end of the day, the results will be worth the, maybe 10 times amount of tokens on top, comparing to, let's say, just, system one. Like, hey, tell me something funny, right?
Well, forgive me, but help me a little bit. So you know that I've been experimenting with almost exactly this. So here's a RAG solution. Every week, or in the beginning, I have a syllabus, which is my plan. It can be any plan, but let's pretend syllabuses are okay, right? Because they break things down into what I consider to be things that will happen. But I'm just saying, in my mind, this could also be a business plan, or it could be it could be any kind of plan, right? Like it could be any strategy document that we say, hey, we want to be leaders in AI at the end of next year, and here's our plan on how to get there. Either way, doesn't matter. It's fantasy, right? But it's an anchor for this RAG. Mm-hmm. What my experiment is that every week I'm doing the plan and students are engaged in it. And I've got 13 something students. And so at the end of every week, they don't know this, but I ask them, how did it go? How was this week? Right? So here's the plan. And I ask you, did it work? And you say you've got a numeric, you've got a quantitative, which is just like, it was bad, it was good, or it was great, or something like that. Like something really simple to assess. Mm-hmm. And then you've got an open text box that says anything challenging or any, whatever, like what was good or bad about this week, and saying this is anonymous and not graded. I think you've heard this, but that makes sense as experimentally okay. It's not anyway, it is what it is. So I got the first round, took them all, fed the spreadsheet into the thing, and I asked it to tell me what was happening in this class. In terms of, is it working, I guess, is my question, right? Are we on track or off track or something like that? So the LLM is very happy to tell me what I want to hear, which is everything's great, and it goes on and on and on. So then I spent, I don't know, every week afterwards trying to teach it to shut up, right? Because what I'm looking for is deltas, right? Mm-hmm. I don't need an assessment of every week, and I don't want to read the stuff myself because I am biased. And I also realized after a while, many weeks, and things were going well. I mean, things are fine, but I was trying to figure out a format, right? That was my real problem, is that if I'm reading this, I just want the highlights. I want to know, is there something I need to do? Should I change something? I think this is a real human need, by the way, right? Like you want to know if you're on track or not. Feedback, a feedback loop, right? So I could do it myself, but I'd rather have it do it because it knows where I want to be. You see what I mean? It's actually a pretty good. Well, I think it's good. Do you think it's good?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so you've got it as a arbiter, is I guess what I'm saying, and a lot of this was learning prompting that gets it to be concise. Because what I really am looking for in the whole experiment is to just see that things don't need to be addressed. And what I realized is, first of all, boy, it loves outliers. What in the heck is with this architecture we have? It loves to bring in outliers, I guess, right? So I had to distinctly tell it to ignore outliers. You can list them or whatever, but you can't bring them into the narrative because there's always outliers, right? There's always distractions, and that's been my problem. So far, do you see? Well, because I'm going to get to the good part. So everything's going great. Well, in fact, It's super complimentary. I'm the best teacher ever. Wonderful. Everything's great until we get to our final project, and I realize I got the statements, and what I'm asking them to do is this. I want them to do the same thing I'm doing, right? They have to pick a topic and they have to find out some data and they have to get it to tell a story. And then the story has to change. That's my main goal with this. It can't be like a prediction market, like, hey, is so-and-so going to happen? Okay, great. You see what I mean? That is an event that has a predictable end. But I'm like, no, things don't have predictable ends. Projects go on forever. Business plans, they don't end. Anyway, so I gave them this assignment, and most of them came back with very not good hypotheses, right? People that can't be convinced, stories that can't be told. It was all kind of bad, and I graded their teams. They were team projects. I graded them low and said, you need to talk to me. And I did, but I got my results in, and guess what? Low. Like this was a big signal of badness, right? Like my numbers go down, my whatever goes down, but the golden lining, the reason I'm telling you the story, the main headline is we are still on track with the learning goals. It just so happens that when you fail at playing the guitar well, you shouldn't just give up the guitar, right? You know, that the point is that you've still learned something. The core of what you're attempting to do is still there. And to me, even though it was bad, and I did react, which is my problem. I'm trying to think, would I ever learn to just like let it be? You know, like let's see if this corrects itself. By the way, everyone in charge of people out there, you know, this is the problem, right? Should I do something or not do something? And can I get the same result from our plan if I do nothing? CEOs, I'm talking to you. You shouldn't do anything, right? If you're a good CEO. But if you do a lot, does anything you do have any effect on the outcome? And I think all of this is actually fun. I don't know. I've described this to you before. Isn't this sort of an interesting use of a tool? It's probably not too far from what you're doing, though, isn't it?
Well, not too far, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to caution you a little bit about your conciseness, the directive, because it sounds an awful lot like similar to the compression in music, right? You
No, no,
asking
no.
the
It's
AI.
attention span. Like humans are bad. We're not bad at attention spans, but you've watched an episodic TV show, right? You know the beginning where it's like last time on so and so. That's compression, right? They don't play the whole episode. They just tell you what you need to know so you can engage in this episode. Oh yeah, so and so got killed, and da da da. So what I'm saying with the thing is, I don't assume that people have a lot of patience, including me, right? You need like some narrative throughput, but to your point, I'm really interested in the time because I'm trying to teach it what time is, which is not natural for this machine, right? Like it doesn't care, I guess.
Yeah, well,
But we do. We know that, hey, last week I would tell you absolutely buy Google. And this week I would say don't. It went up 30%. It's probably a bad time to buy. See what I mean? We know that the world changes, right? And it doesn't kind of know the world changes.
yeah, well, yeah, that's a big topic. But yeah, it's kind of the management of the educational process, is really kind of, I often give you the examples from my, kind of from the time I was a, undergrad and grad student,
Yeah.
in an environment that was very, I guess, harsh towards students, right? And I hated that environment at that time, but now I think about it, from the perspective of decades, and I think, hey, that's really kind of motivated me, and maybe the motivation was not through, hey, doing great, let's keep going, but the motivation was, hey, not everybody has to be an engineer, right? Like, hey, if you don't pass this class, then you better kind of like quit higher education and kind of get some maybe a blue collar job, which may not be financially a bad thing, So anyway, so what
Maybe. I mean,
what you are
that's
describing.
very cultural, right? Because maybe in many cultures, and I think it's true even here, right? There's only so many jobs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How many jobs are there in the AI field? Infinite amounts of jobs, apparently. You see what I mean? Like if you're an AI person, I guess. Sorry. I mean, I'm being tasked right now to teach AI, which seems even stranger because um, to me, this was all just because this was something new and it was very adjacent to things I'm already interested in, right? And I know you, and right, like it worked out that it became something. But I I I'm curious of who could teach this,
Mm.
if you know what I mean. I'm trying to teach this in my own way because my project that I'm having them do really isn't necessarily around um, AI itself. It's more around people and how they make decisions, and that's why I call it a strategy class, right? Which is how do you influence strategy? Well, if you're
Mm.
most places, you guess and and go
Yeah.
with it. You know what I mean? Like, but if you were a strategist, you'd say, well, I want to place my bets strategically. So if I do lose, I learn something. I think that's what you're working on
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, there's several layers of AI that you can teach, right? So you can teach math, right? So you can teach, hey, there's those three neurons, right? And then you kind of, combine the inputs, and here's they're gonna be the output, and here's the transformer architecture. So that is a very it looks very heavy, right? And but mathematically, right? But it's kind of maybe on an easy side actually, right? Because once you get the math, then the AI is beginning to be very, very kind of deterministic and clear, even though the outcome from the transformer process is, probabilistic and all that stuff. But then once you start moving towards the kind of like higher levels of AI, like what do you do with it, right? Like, or what is the memory, right, architecture, or what is supposed to be the input, right? How do you optimize what goes in for the outcome quality, right? And how do you define the outcome of the quality? I mean, the quality of the outcome. This becomes kind of like a really hard subject to teach, right? Because like, hey, like how do I even approach this? Because you might look at the information quality literature, from decades and decades of research, and you will kind of realize, hey, those techniques are not really kind of like bulletproof. Right. And then you will see, oh, and now the organizational aspects, of AI. How do I even deploy the AI? So yes, I mean, so there's some things that I think you gravitate towards that are kind of the hardest questions. Like is even AI going to help us, right? Or is even AI gonna be gonna care, right? So to speak. Or are the people around AI gonna be kind of better, or actually gonna crash, so yeah, yeah.
Well, and that's immediately because I'm a designer, right? I mean, I will tell you the biggest problem in my own design career is that if I go into an area, such as any place that I've worked, right, my first goal is to understand exactly what this place does, right? Because I feel like, well, that's my job is I'm a translator, right? Like people, except if they work for Microsoft, aren't expecting people to understand how Microsoft works in order to use their products, right? But we all know that Microsoft expects you to know how Microsoft works to use their products. You see what I mean? Like the reason why, did you know that you're on Linux, but whatever.
Mm,
That Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or whatever that was like, it's like 3 gig program now. So I keep
mm,
thinking like, oh yeah, I was around for this thing. It was a stupid, you made a PowerPoint, whatever it was. Like, what in the world takes 3 gigabytes of data to do a
mm,
slideshow? You see what I mean? And it's sort
mm,
of this thing of like, well, you got to sell higher uh, capability computers, and you got to keep, pushing the edge of envelopes and such like that. But at least if you saw a game, you'd be like, wow, this is better than Super Zelda. That had only 256 colors or something, and it could
mm,
only render a flat thing. And now you're like, oh no, I want millions of colors, and I want you see what I mean? So
mm,
your expectations at least get rewarded by like better quality. And we go to compression now as saying like, no, no, it's lossless. We didn't remove any of the 10 million zeros in this stupid file to save space because you could hear them, maybe, is what people think, right? Like, oh,
mm,
maybe those 10 million zeros really count for something. But this is the mismatch between powerful computers and reality. And my point is, as a designer, like I really did want to go through and did learn. I learned actuarial science when I worked for Mercer. Weird, just because if I can understand it, then maybe I can make this interface so that someone else could understand it, right? Because I figure I'm a novice, I can maybe translate it for them. Doesn't Anyway, this is a designer's job, and I think you've just said this is the problem with being an engineer too. You don't know what the corpus is. Like you might not have ever even taken literature, which is what I really get pissed off that we don't teach people other disciplines, because those are when you start to see, oh, they had this problem as well, right? They had the same problem that I'm encountering in my engineering world, but rather than treat it like it's a problem that you can collapse, because that never happens, you just do a new architecture. That's always the solution, right? Don't do it the same way we've already done it, because it's like I saw our good friend Feynman speak the other day on a video, right? And Feynman's kind of a character, but what he said is that everybody's been trying to figure this out, and they're all wrong, or they would have figured it out. It doesn't mean that Dirac and all the models and everything else are wrong. It's just that they've worked on it for a long time, and until you get to a new architecture, then the problems remain. Even as clever as they are, again, as brilliant as they are, they're not completely correct. So I think that's what I love about transformers, right? Is that it's a stochastic system. Like it isn't deterministic. It's a confabulation. It's great. It doesn't follow the rules by design, and that opened up this weird world of it's actually more accurate, which may be another talk. I'm like, how is it that it's better at it when it's designed to be a little bit worse at it?
Well, yeah, I don't think that the theory of thought was kind of a consideration when we were designing transformers, right? I mean, we were
Oh
kind of
no,
like
it was a dumb. Yeah, it was one of those boondoggle projects, right? Like Google's good at.
Yeah. So that was kind of like maybe not intentional. I don't think they expected that it's going to be as big. They expected maybe an incremental improvement over, like the basic backpropagation neural networks that existed for several decades. So, but then, then they realized that there is a little bit more, and yeah.
Yeah, but you also needed a database as big as humankind almost to make this work. So I mean, it's not like you could have done this 50 years ago. You see what I mean? Like it wouldn't have occurred. It wasn't even. There wasn't even a glimpse of this kind of data set. And maybe it's why Microsoft has 3 gig. Maybe it's got a large language model thrown in there for good measure for some reason. By the way, that's the new thing, is people are going to start embedding models and things. And boy, these things can get huge if you're not careful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that is. So the issue with Microsoft is kind of maybe a little bit kind of an I wouldn't say outlier, because everybody's doing the same thing, right? Like you look at
but we'll have a whole show
packages.
on complaining about Microsoft. How's that? It's easy.
Yeah, but and maybe to their kind of in their defense, I think a lot of that data is the exporters, like having being able to export something into a PDF. It's probably a very hefty driver that has been written maybe long time ago and not optimized, and it's really kind of like an atrocity that is maybe 10 times bigger and 10 times as inefficient as possible, right? So because nobody just had the time to kind of look at this, or just in testing, just it shows up as it works, and then let's throw it into Microsoft Word. So perhaps the core of the text editor is still there, but yeah, I mean, I remember Word 2.0, from the 90s. It was probably maybe a megabyte or maybe less, and it was wonderful, and it had equation editor, and if I had that program still today, I would be perfectly happy. I wouldn't need anything else.
I think that's a good ending note, right?
Yeah,
Like the more things change, do they get better? I think that's another good topic for next week, Jack.
yeah, 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 definitely.
We're still progressives. We still want it. It's just that people. All right. Well,
Yeah,
till then, thank you for your thoughts and time. Appreciate you.
yeah. Thank you, Mike. Until next time.